Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into something quite profound, I think, how you can gain a much deeper sense of, well, control over your life, moving beyond just feeling like you're reacting to everything that happens to you.
Yeah, and for this one, you've given us some really fascinating source material to look at. It gets into some big ideas, talking about concepts like moving beyond duality and even becoming the architect of your own reality. Sounds pretty grand, right?
It does, and that's really our mission for this deep dive, to unpack the framework that your material lays out, to sort of figure out the principles it's suggesting for how you can consciously, deliberately shape your life experience.
And right away, this material throws down a bit of a gauntlet, doesn't it? It challenges how most of us, well, how we tend to see things. It suggests a huge chunk of our suffering doesn't come from, life having ups and downs, good stuff and bad stuff, but actually how our minds process those opposites.
Right, and it really zooms in on that knee-jerk reaction we have, that tendency to instantly slap a label on something, good or bad. Simple as that.
Yes. And then, of course, we desperately try to hold on to the good things and push away or fight the bad.
Mm.
This source is basically saying that whole process, the labeling, the resisting, is what creates this fractured feeling, this constant inner battle. It poses the question, what if looking at the world differently, seeing its underlying wholeness, is actually the key?
Okay, so if that immediate judgment, that labeling is the problem, what's the core idea the source offers instead? What's the solution?
Well, the central concept revolves around what the material calls the universal law of opposites, and it draws on Dr. DeMartini's work quite a bit here. The really powerful claim is that every single thing, every event, person, experience you have it, contains an absolutely equal and simultaneous amount of both positive and negative aspects.
Whoa, hang on. Equal and simultaneous, that feels, well, it just feels wrong, doesn't it? When something feels truly awful, just bad through and through, it's really hard to wrap your head around the idea that it simultaneously holds just as much positive right there, right then.
Oh, absolutely. It flies in the face of our immediate gut reaction, our emotional response.
Right.
But that's exactly where this material says our perception plays the crucial role. It argues that your feeling that something is purely good or purely bad isn't the objective truth of the event itself. It's just your subjective take on it,
Yeah.
filtered through your unique lens, what you happen to value or fear in that moment.
So the pain or the joy isn't actually in the thing itself. It's in the glasses we're wearing when we look at it.
Precisely. That's a great way to put it. And here's the really profound insight offered. When you can consciously train yourself, shift your perception to see both sides. When you can really diligently look for and find the hidden benefit or support within something you first called negative, and just as importantly, find the potential downside or challenge in what you initially labeled positive, when you do that, the emotional charge, the intensity tied to that situation, it just starts to dissolve.
Okay, so the suffering isn't baked into the event. It's generated by our lopsided judgment of it and our resistance to seeing the other side.
That is the absolute core teaching here.
Yes.
And the material links this kind of balanced perception to a much deeper understanding of what some might call unconditional love. But it's not presented as, a fuzzy feeling you have towards something. It's described more as a profound state of awareness,
Okay, a state of awareness where you perceive what exactly?
where you perceive the underlying perfection and balance in absolutely everything. From that viewpoint, the source suggests you don't need to judge anymore. You don't need to resist, because you start to glimpse this deeper order, recognizing that every single experience, even the really tough ones, is perfectly tailored somehow to serve your highest growth, your evolution.
That really leads us straight into that beyond duality idea, doesn't it? It's not about wishing the opposites would just go away, but fundamentally changing how you relate to them.
Exactly. Seeing their perfect symmetry, their interconnectedness, like you can't have one without the other. They're two sides of the same coin, and both are necessary. The material uses this really striking analogy. It says something like, a dragon doesn't choose between fire and ice. It understands both are forces of creation and wields them with balanced wisdom. True mastery, it argues, comes from seeing that perfection in everything.
And this is where it gets really, really exciting, I think. Because the source makes this huge claim. When you actually cultivate this state, this balanced perception, you naturally step into being the true architect of your own reality.
Yeah, you stop feeling like life is just happening to you, like you're a victim of circumstance or just constantly reacting.
Yeah.
Because you understand, like deep down in your bones, that every situation, no matter how it looks on the surface, already contains the seed of its opposite. The thing that feels like a hardship simultaneously holds an equal measure of support hidden within it.
So you're not thrown around so much by, say, fear of losing something or desperately grasping for something else, because you see the balance is already there. And your actions change from just reacting, struggling against what feels unbalanced, to becoming more deliberate, conscious choices rooted in seeing the wholeness of it all.
That's the idea. The material suggests this shift leads to a life where, well, synchronicity seems to increase. Your intentions manifest more smoothly with more flow. Life doesn't suddenly become perfect in the sense of no challenges. Instead, you become masterful at seeing the perfection within every challenge and turning it into, well, wisdom and personal power.
It really flips the script on what challenges are even for, doesn't it? It implies they aren't roadblocks to get rid of, but they're actually the curriculum, perfectly designed for your growth. It connects to that powerful idea, you're not just a human having a spiritual moment now and then, but maybe you're a spiritual being having this very specific, very dualistic human experience precisely because it's the perfect training ground.
And importantly, this source doesn't just leave you hanging with abstract concepts. It gives you a very concrete, very actionable method to actually apply this principle in your own life. It describes an exercise, sometimes it's called the Dragon Trial, sometimes the Balanced Life Review.
Okay, this sounds like the how-to, the practical part. How does it work?
Basically, you take a specific area of your life where you feel, stuck, or maybe where you have really strong emotional judgments, could be career, a relationship, health, some past event. You sit down and you identify what you perceive as the positives and the negatives connected to it.
Right. And then the crucial step, I guess, is finding that balance you mentioned.
Exactly. For every single positive point you listed, you have to diligently search for and write down its corresponding drawbacks, its liabilities, the negatives associated with it. And then, crucially, the other way around. For every negative you listed, you search for and list its benefits, its supports, the hidden positives. The goal isn't just to list them, but to keep digging, keep asking questions, keep reframing, until you genuinely feel a sense of emotional neutrality or balance around each specific point you wrote down.
So it's not just an intellectual exercise. You're actively hunting for that hidden other side until the actual emotional charge, the sting or the attachment, starts to fade.
Precisely. It's the active process of perceiving that equal and simultaneous reality we talked about earlier. And once you've reached that feeling of balance about that particular area or event, you then reflect on how your whole perception has shifted and how this new balanced viewpoint empowers you now to consciously engage with that area of your life or shape its future differently.
So this practical exercise, this balanced life review, it's presented as really the way to go from just understanding these ideas in your head to actually embodying that state of balanced perception and becoming that conscious architect the source talks about.
Yeah, you could say it's where the theory meets practice in this particular philosophy. It's the application.
Okay, so let's try and pull this together. The core principle we've explored from your source material is essentially this: recognizing the inherent balance in everything, actively seeing the positive inside the negative and the negative inside the positive. That's the absolute key. It's the key to dissolving emotional pain and fundamentally changing how you see reality itself.
Right. And as that shift happens, as you start seeing what the source calls the perfection and balance in all things,
Yeah.
you naturally move beyond duality. You step into that more powerful role described as the conscious, magnificent architect of your life.
And we also touched on the practical tool offered in the material, that balanced life review or dragon trial, as a concrete way to apply these ideas directly to your own life, your own experiences, allowing you to actually see the balance where maybe before you only saw one side, the good or the bad.
Yeah, in this deep dive, it was really focused on unpacking those tools, that transformative perspective presented specifically in your source material. The aim is understanding how it suggests you can turn challenges, things that feel like problems from sources of suffering, into powerful fuel for wisdom, for growth, and for conscious creation in your life.
So here's a final thought to leave you with, drawing directly from these ideas. If, as this material strongly suggests, every single perceived negative thing you experience actually contains an equal and simultaneous hidden benefit, something designed specifically for your highest growth, then maybe ask yourself, what's one challenging situation or perhaps a past event in your life right now that you could maybe explore through this lens, maybe using that balanced life review idea, to see if you can uncover its unexpected wisdom, its hidden support,